The deluge hammered Silas's ancient Ford pickup, each drop a tear in the world's vast sorrow. Another rejection echoed in his ears, a familiar refrain of, "We'll be in touch." His worn coat clung to him, still carrying the scent of the sterile waiting room. His wallet held only a faded photograph of his daughter, Ilara. In the back, 5-year-old Ilara slumbered, her small fingers entwined with a threadbare unicorn. Silas glanced at her in the rearview mirror, a poignant ache in his chest. She was the fragile anchor in his unraveling world. Since the passing of his beloved Lyra 2 years prior, everything had crumbled. The cozy cottage, the steady carpentry job, the dwindling savings, even the sturdy scaffolding of his self-assurance. But not Ilara. Never her. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as he navigated the serpentine lane toward their cramped apartment, the windshield wipers sighing a mournful rhythm against the storm's relentless symphony. Each dawn felt like a desperate scramble away from the abyss. He shielded Ilara from the gnawing despair that shadowed his every move. The truck's heater offered only weak, asthmatic puffs of warmth. Silas exhaled, a cloud blooming on the cold glass, the weight of his endurance pressing down on him. He didn't know how much longer he could bear this desolate march. The world had turned glacial and indifferent. Yet for Ilara, he would not yield. Then, as the night seemed to deepen its embrace, a flicker on the roadside snagged his attention, a fragile anomaly in the overwhelming darkness. Rounding the bend, the Ford's headlights cut through the torrential downpour, illuminating the dense, weeping trees. A stark white form pulsed in the periphery of his vision. Silas slammed on the brakes, the truck shuddering to a halt on the slick shoulder. His heart hammered, not with alarm, but with a primal instinct. Something was profoundly amiss. Leaving Ilara in her peaceful slumber, he plunged into the storm, his boots sinking into the sodden earth. Initially, he dismissed it as a discarded mannequin, a trick of the relentless rain. But as he drew nearer, the horrifying truth struck him with the force of a physical blow. A woman stood bound to a gnarled oak, the storm lashing at her like invisible whips. Her once exquisite ivory gown was shredded and stained, her bare feet rooted in the mud, her limbs trembling violently. Mud and tears streaked her face, yet her wide, haunted eyes locked onto his, a silent scream for salvation. Silas froze, disbelief coiling in his gut. "Are you all right?" he choked out, his voice swallowed by the tempest. She remained mute, a statue of frozen terror. He scanned the desolate roadside. No vehicle, no dwelling, no sign of another soul. Only her, utterly alone, abandoned to the elements. His own burdens, the overdue rent, the bare pantry, the crushing solitude of single parenthood, suddenly shrank in significance. Whoever she was, whatever torment she had endured, she needed rescue. And Silas could not, would not, turn away. He shrugged off his threadbare coat and draped it gently over her shivering shoulders. "You're safe now," he murmured, unaware that in saving her, he was unknowingly charting a course toward his own redemption. Sleep eluded Silas that night. After severing the heavy chain with a rusty bolt cutter from his toolbox, he carried the stranger into their meager dwelling. Drenched, silent, and utterly drained, she barely registered their surroundings. Ilara stirred, her eyes fluttering open, but she offered no questions as Silas tenderly laid the woman on their worn sofa, cocooning her in their few blankets. She was barely conscious, a single word escaping her lips before she succumbed to exhaustion. Seraphina. Their apartment was a testament to their hardship. Thin walls whispering every sound, paint peeling like sunburnt skin, a refrigerator groaning under its own weight, a space heater that flickered with unreliable warmth. Silas had no room, no resources to take in a stranger. Yet, something in Seraphina's ravaged gaze, so raw and broken, had pierced through the layers of his own pain. He couldn't refuse. The following morning, Seraphina sat at their small kitchen table, still shrouded in silence, but her eyes holding a flicker of awareness. Silas offered her a mug of steaming coffee. She nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she accepted the warmth. In the days that followed, her words remained scarce, cautious whispers in response to his gentle inquiries. But her actions spoke volumes. She moved through their cramped space with a quiet grace, folding laundry with meticulous care, securing a loose cabinet hinge, even mending the torn horn of Alara's beloved unicorn with delicate stitches, all without being asked. Alara, starved for connection, gravitated toward her instantly. One sun-drenched morning, Silas found them nestled on the floor, a riot of crayon marks surrounding them, Ilara's infectious giggles mingling with Seraphina's hesitant smiles, the first genuine laughter Silas had heard in what felt like an eternity. A subtle shift permeated their small home, a lightening of the oppressive atmosphere. Silas didn't yet comprehend the alchemy at play, but something fragile and restorative had taken root. Seraphina wasn't merely existing, she was tenderly piecing their fractured world back together. Late one evening, long after Alara had drifted into dreams, a profound silence enveloped the apartment. Silas sat at the worn kitchen table, nursing a tepid cup of tea. Seraphina stood by the window, watching the wind sculpt the branches of the ancient oak outside. Then, her voice, soft as a falling leaf, broke the stillness. "I was meant to be wed that day." The words cracked, like brittle ice fracturing. Silas looked up, his heart clenching. "I didn't love him, barely knew him. My family, they called it obligation, honor." She turned, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I fled. They found me, said I had brought disgrace. So they chained me there, to contemplate my transgression." Silas swallowed hard, a potent cocktail of fury and sorrow churning within him. Words failed him. He simply sat there, stunned by the sheer brutality of it. "I thought no one would ever stop," she whispered, her gaze fixed on the worn floorboards. "That perhaps I wasn't worthy enough to be saved." Silas rose slowly, crossed the small space and placed a gentle hand on her trembling shoulder. "You were never lost," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You were waiting to be found, by someone who recognized your light." Tears streamed down her face, followed by his own. In that shared moment of vulnerability, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Not pity, not mere rescue, but a profound recognition. Two wounded souls tentatively beginning to believe in the possibility of beauty amidst the wreckage. A year later, their small apartment still felt cozy rather than cramped, now overflowing with a vibrant warmth. Morning light danced through clean windows, accompanied by the joyful sounds of laughter emanating from the kitchen. Silas stood at the stove, expertly flipping golden pancakes, the weariness etched on his face now replaced by a quiet contentment. Across the table, Seraphina gently guided Alara's small hands as she braided her hair, her touch filled with tenderness, her smile radiant. Silas had found steady work as a caretaker at the local community center, a humble job that filled him with a quiet sense of purpose. Seraphina, once silenced by shame, had discovered a fierce inner voice, volunteering at a haven for women who had endured similar horrors, her own story a beacon of hope for those teetering on the edge of despair. Alara beamed with pride every time she introduced Seraphina. "This is my mother," she would declare, as if the title had always belonged to her. And perhaps, in the deepest sense of the word, it had. That night, after Alara had drifted off to sleep, Silas and Seraphina sat on their small porch, their hands intertwined, watching the ethereal dance of fireflies against the velvet backdrop of the night. Words were unnecessary. Their hearts spoke a language all their own. They had not set out to save each other, but rather, They had chosen to love, even in their brokenness. And in that simple, profound choice, they had unearthed something unbreakable. Sometimes, the most shattered souls possess the extraordinary power to mend others, and when love is offered freely, even by those who feel they have nothing left to give, it often returns as a miracle, illuminating the darkest corners of existence.